How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah.
In lockdown?
Yeah, I'm in. I'm actually next door to Mike Israel. We're literally neighbors.
What a weird situation.
Is that by design or coincidental?
Yeah. So I was stuck in New York first, and I was like, so who do we know here? And a couple clients, a couple of people in New York. It's like, oh, okay. And I was like, I know Mike Israel. He's like, it's only an hour drive, so you just go here.
It wasn't just like 2 a.m. like, what's that bloody racket next door? You knock on the door and you're like, oh, I'm sure that's the guy from Renaissance periodization.
Do you just talk about protein and stuff?
Yeah, everything. I mean, we see each other quite a lot now. And, you should have seen the response to my article on the genetic muscular potential of women. That was like, so it's the same is the conclusion. And there's like, half of the people are like, you're a fucking feminist. And the other half's like, that's sexist.
Oh my God.
What?
Right.
This is what happens when you talk about data and it upsets someone because they don't like the conclusion to this. Yeah. I think my favorite part of the previous one was we asked you, would you rather flip a coin and make like £10 million instantly or die instantly? And you were like, well, of course, because based on the expected value criterion, this would be a £5 million payoff. So I would flip the coin.
Yeah. I'd still give that answer.
I was just about to ask you that. That's the ultimate test, isn't it? Whether you still feel the same way. Do you have more? Did you find any more would you rather questions yourself?
Oh, I did. Are you ready, Menno?
Yeah, let's get into it.
So, very important. Would you rather never wear underwear again or have to wear gloves for the rest of your life?
I'll do without the undies. I'd say those are unessential, and I don't like gloves. In general, I don't like anything. I like direct contact between my hands and
the barbell.
Whatever. Also in sports, it's like, if you look at which sports I like, it's basically, am I doing something with my hands? Otherwise, my feet. If there's like an object in between, my liking for the sport decreases significantly.
100%. Well, like if you're always having to deadlift in gloves for the rest of your life, like terrible.
Yeah. I did that when I was 16.
Typing on a keyboard, using your phone, like using any digital device would be a nightmare.
I have trouble using my phone right now.
Whereas direct genital contact with your trousers, like that's a much lower cost than gloves all the time. So yeah, I agree with you on that. Second one, would you rather have a fully functional lightsaber or cure coronavirus?
I'm going to have to go with curing coronavirus.
You're a good man,
I'm not that big into Star Wars.
That's an opportunity to either get a really negative public backlash
or a lightsaber. Yeah. I like the new Star Trek movies. Those are,
yeah.
The final one, this is not a would you rather, but let's assume that you were immortal. Would you tell people or not?
I guess it wouldn't matter.
Like, would you keep it a secret?
Yeah, nobody would believe me anyway.
Well, you could win a lot of bets if you didn't tell people.
Well, I'm in Philadelphia now. I guess there would be situations where like you tell the wrong person, they're like, immortal this, and then they shoot you in the head. But
you're still immortal.
Yeah.
Because it might hurt though, mightn't it? You never know.
So I guess eat shit bricks.
Very true.
Okay. Moving swiftly on then. So it'd be good to know, Menno, just for sort of people listening who perhaps aren't familiar with you, what your background is, your involvement in the fitness industry, online, offline, and sort of what you do now as well. Be good to know.
Sure. I mean, my main two things are still online coaching and basically educating others to become online coaches. So my online PT course is available in several languages. I host the English one. And other than that, I do some scientific research and then some side jobs, advisory board positions and stuff.
Okay. What was it about online fitness coaching that sort of inspired you to move in that direction?
It started pretty ad hoc. It wasn't even that I started online coaching. There was actually demand for I actually had the product in my case. So I started writing about it. And at the time, I was still a business consultant. And my first article was published on T Nation. So then I suddenly had an audience, and I quickly scrambled together a website, and I just started writing about it and, you know, answering people's comments and stuff. And then people started asking me, hey, can you coach me? I was like, okay, sure, I can give it a try. That went well. And then it was mostly word of mouth, and things grew from there.
And was that like, when was that? That'd be quite a while ago now.
Like, I mean, I guess you can check the date on the T Nation article. That's basically when it started. Yeah.
Right. So you just submitted some stuff to T Nation, they gave you a shot, and then it all kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, that was when T Nation was still the thing.
Yeah.
Also for like evidence-based fitness.
Yeah.
And a lot of people now actually don't even know anymore what T Nation is like just on our website.
Yeah.
Then it was like, it's true. They say pretty much all the greats in the industry have written on T Nation, and that's at that time that was 100% true.
Yeah.
Yeah, T Nation was the golden age of fitness on the internet back before all this. I looked back on some of my old old notes the other day, and I saw a clip from T Nation of one of their bodybuilders saying, I was so unwell and I was dragging around an oxygen canister in the gym while I was training, but because I was taking this lipid supplement, it meant that I could just power through it, and it was all okay. And I gained 16 pounds of muscle in 3 weeks. You're like, classic T Nation.
It started to move that way, didn't it? So slowly.
And it's more supplement focused.
Yeah. But like Charles Poliquin, and I think he wrote some of the first articles on there, right?
Yeah, he was big on there.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that's kind of evolved into what you do now, which straddles sort of both sides of the coaching relationship.
Exactly.
Are you still coaching people personally? Still fitness coaching yourself?
Yeah. I've actually tried some forms of, and I do have a co-coaching module where I have some students of my PT course that I think are really good. I've coached someone else, but the conversion rate to that is literally 1% or less. So it's basically when someone comes to me and they're like, I want coaching from you. And I say, okay, these are my rates. And they're like, oh, it's kind of expensive. And I'm like, okay, I understand. Sure. I can offer this co-coaching. I'll supervise the coach, and the coach will be doing the coaching. You'll be in contact with the coach. I was like, conversion rate it's just abysmal. So I barely even advertise it in.
So people just want Menno or no Menno.
I guess. I mean, it is really important that most of my clients, pretty much all, for both the PT course and for me as a PT, and that's, I think, a really good lesson for all PTs. Depends a bit on your market, but virtually anyone that purchases anything from me has followed me for like a year or longer. And they're like, so I read this article, and if I ask them, for example, where did you first hear about me? Most of them don't know. Like some are really specific, like keto gains. You had overwhelmingly positive reviews. That's why I'm here now. But others are like, yeah, I stumbled upon your article on Google, maybe, I don't know, or saw some of your Facebook posts, and then you started following you, wrote articles, listened to a podcast, and it built trust and liking. And in general, I say as a PT, the two most important things you want to cultivate in your audience, you need to be likable and you need to be authoritative. So basically, people want you to know your stuff so you can deliver them results. And this is ultimately generally the most important, although it depends a bit on the market, because for some people it's equally important, if not more important, that you're a likable person. And I'd say that being a likable person is maybe even more important for the retention of clients, and authority is probably a little bit more important for the prospects, the initial signups, because you're not going to give someone a lot of money just because you like them.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be somewhat of a business nature to it.
So I suppose that this is the problem that lots of like fitness Instagram influencers are facing, which is they've got a huge amount of traffic. People like them, or people follow them because of either they like their personality or their sex appeal or whatever, but actually it doesn't convert very well into their coaching because they're not an authority in that niche. Right. For sure.
That's a big problem with Instagram in general. I'd say the value of an Instagram like, follow, subscriber is in general very low compared to someone on Facebook, and especially compared to a newsletter follower, because Instagram is watching pictures, Yeah. And a lot of people, it's also a bit by design very internal, and people don't really stray from Instagram as much. Forums have the same issue. So if you get really big on a forum, you have to get really big on a big forum and then you can cultivate an audience there. Like Birger Fagerli or Norway, he started off mostly like that. And there are some people you can get big on Reddit. T-Nation actually had some people like that. Bodybuilding.com forums. But even then, those are often not people that really stray from a forum. They just, the reason they go there is for the information. And, you know, you're just a source of information, but they already get what they want from you on that location. And Instagram sort of has this as well. Most people on Instagram are not, you know, the reason they're on Instagram and not listening to an hour-long podcast or reading a super long article, like broadly speaking, right, is because that's simply not what they're interested in. They want an infographic.
So can you talk a bit about that then? Because this is like, you're saying people, they want to stay on the platform that they originally found you on. And so, and even the platform, the way that it's designed, like they will down-regulate or they'll downgrade posts that link to external websites or that stop you from just scrolling on the same feed. So whereas what you've got set up, especially with your kind of PT coaching business, is people come into your world, they come into your platform, and you then own that traffic.
Exactly. So actually, basically any platform, any good platform will actually design itself in such a way as to prevent people from leaving the platform. And Facebook also penalizes posts that have links in it, for example. That's why I generally don't link to scientific articles. I just, if someone in the comments asks, like, also always give them a link, but I won't put the link directly in there. In general, also on your website, like all of my articles are scientifically referenced, so I have a lot of links, but there are a lot of cases where it's actually better not to have a link, because basically every link you give is an opportunity for someone to click on it and be gone. What you want is you want them to be on your website or do something there, like sign up or buy a product ultimately. So yeah, I think that's really a really big part. And also what you said on someone having like a lot of sex appeal or liking and not authority. Without naming names, I know a lot of people on Instagram, especially if you look more in the fitness model, less like evidence-based fitness, more mainstream fitness model. And if you say, for example, really big female fitness model that mostly posts like selfies, maybe some exercises, but does do coaching, huge mismatch. Look at the demographics of her following. It'll be like 80+% male. And often you see that these women do women coaching, right? So there is a bit of a discrepancy there.
100%. Well, so you might know a guy called Zach Ainsley. He's big on Instagram. So I used to go to school with him. Used to hang out with him from my hometown. He's now got 1.2 million followers, which is insane. Like the level of traffic that he's able to command is massive. But people, I don't know how he's making his money currently. Like I've not seen him pitch anything, but it looks like that kind of following seems to be much more scaled to supplement promotion and product promotion and stuff. But then it's like you're then at the mercy of your exposure on that platform.
Yeah, so you have to get really big, what's the guy's name? Dan Bilzerian?
Yeah.
Dan. Whatever, Dan, or good old Dan. He basically, then you get to the point where you're so popular, you don't really have a product. It's just you post stuff and people will come to you and ask you for like endorsements or affiliate deals, or they just pay you to be on the platform. Like I think in this case, like he doesn't even have to pay the models that are on his page, because simply the reach of being on that platform, even when they look like someone in a different kind of market, potentially, is so good that, there's not even any, he basically gets his, what he wants for free for the publicity. And with the publicity itself is his product. So then you have its whole own ecosystem. But to get there, you first have to reach a very large critical mass in terms of popularity.
So I think these two, what we've just spoken about. So firstly, this belief that everybody in the online fitness world today who has any kind of traction either posted on T-Nation or existed kind of back in 2010 or has 1.whatever million followers on Instagram, and outside of those two realities, it's completely impenetrable for someone who may be completely qualified to coach a group of people, but they look at all these platforms and see all these obstacles how do you suggest that someone in that position what's the first step that you suggest someone takes?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's hard. Like there's, if you just look at any kind of statistics in terms of small businesses in general, it's hard to basically break through, because the thing about popularity is that there is generally exponential growth. For some reason, I've managed to elude the concept of exponential growth with my followers, and my popularity does not seem to influence how fast I gain followers. It's linear. It's been linear from like day one, and it's still going linear. I don't know why, but what's supposed to happen is that once you get popular, you sort of get more popular because you're popular. You know, and you see this really strongly on like YouTube, where there's a video and it's like, this video has 5 million views, and it will pop up in your Facebook feed, and it's like, this video has 5 million views in 2 days. And then you're like, oh, that's interesting. What would it be? And everyone has that, and then it has 10 million views. You know, so popularity itself basically drives. It's also social proof. Basically, that's the principle. Popularity drives itself. But if you don't have popularity, what do? Generally, research finds that any type of boutique or niche business has a much greater chance of surviving in a market like this. So ideally, you basically create your own kind of niche. And I think that's a really big mistake I see, especially my type of students. They want to emulate me, basically. So they graduate my course, they use my methods, and they use my, also what they learn in the business module, like my marketing, my type of the way I use social media and stuff. And that's pretty much guaranteed not to work, because, you'll be another me. And that's, the best case scenario basically would be something like you'll be Thibodeau rather than Poliquin. But Thibodeau has really evolved his own methods. He's definitely not Poliquin anymore. So you have to differentiate yourself. Otherwise, what's the point of anyone? Like, also, especially people, the worst part is the people that just copy articles. And what's the point? For one, the people in the know, they'll know, and people that don't know, you can't fool them for long, and you have no niche in the market. You don't create your own something.
So this is a good point, that like people who they do the Menno Henselmans course and then they try and become Menno Henselmans, and it's like, of course you're going to do a worse job of being Menno Henselmans than Menno himself. Right. And so aiming to like not differentiate yourself, and also like the market now is a very different place to what it was when we all started, say 10, 12 years ago now, where like when we started, we would literally write a WordPress post on like, what is hypertrophy? And it would get ranked on the first page of Google, and it was on like a standard WordPress theme. And, you could appeal to such a broad market of like how to achieve fat loss while on holiday. Like, whereas now, like if you were to, you've got both the time advantage of having established yourself early and, created some high ranking content within those pieces of work. Secondly, you've got the scientific rigor, which is not a very easily teachable skill. And you're somebody who walks the walk in the niche that you're presenting to, which is that you've done bodybuilding, you have a physique that you display on Instagram. And like, so I think all of those things means that trying to emulate that 10 years later is just impossible.
Right. So you want to take the general sort of categories. You have to show people, in general, it always helps to show that you walk the talk. And that can be because you compete or you just look okay. It really depends on the market. If you want to specialize in contest prep coaching, then I'd say you better look really good. Or you have to, for somehow have gained at least 100 people that have purchased your coaching and gotten really good results from it. So you already have the reputation. But for most people, you basically need to have competed to be really big as a coach for competitors. And on the other side, if you look okay, like Gen Pop okay, like you have a physique that many people on the beach would think is great, but doesn't have a place yet on a bodybuilding stage, that can actually be good. Because if that's your market, they see a picture of even me, for example, already, and you'll be like, oh, gross, that is nasty. What is that? What are those lines? What's that? Is that his knee, or he has 2 knees? Like, So it's you have to, I think the most important thing is finding like your niche in your market. And one of the best things is to simply find what you like and think of people like you. For most people, that I think is the best way to go about it. And that's largely also what I do, because in general, big thing, all of this marketing talk and talks about, like how certain systems are designed and which platforms to use and stuff. All of that is secondary to what you can offer. And most people ask themselves, what's popular? What's the best platform? And I think that before all that, by far the most important thing is, what can you offer? How can you provide value to people's lives? And how do you want to do this? Because I would probably be good for YouTube, but I won't like it. So I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it. And I know even if I start on it, it's not gonna be very satisfactory for me. Like, I prefer writing. So,
for someone who, like, you've seen Jeff Nippard, presumably. Like, yeah. He's somebody who has like plowed into YouTube and it's so impressive how well he's done that. But whenever I see his videos, I just think, oh, the number of hours of work just to create like 5 minutes of footage must be insane.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you have to like video editing, and you have to like video in general. So that's another thing. Like, if it's basically the same principle. If you don't think you're gonna do this for the next probably decades, every day, you're not gonna be successful at it. Just because like this is supposed to be the optimal platform, this is what's popular right now, these are sort of, this is the formula. It generally it won't happen like that. You have to think of, what can you offer? Are you good at drawing stuff? Are you good at explaining things more in person? And are you very likable? Or are you better at writing things down and researching things properly? Those kind of things determine what kind of platform you should use. What kind of person are you? What kind of people like persons like you? Probably similar people. And that's probably going to be sort of your niche. So you want to give content, and the amount of depth in the content, and all of those things should be tailored to that kind of audience.
I think a mistake we see a lot of new coaches make is ignoring the fact that just exactly what you just said. Like, it's still a business. There is still value exchange. There's still supply and demand. Like, rules of a market still apply. And if you're in it for 6 months, probably no matter what you do, you're probably still going to not experience results that are worth even bothering with. So it's that. And also I think you're dead right that, because another thing we see a lot of is people feeling like they aren't qualified enough. So they'll see Eric Helms, Mike Israetel, Menno Henselmans, and think, well, I can't look at scientific literature and distill it like these guys. So perhaps I'm not good enough to be an online coach at all. But exactly what you just said, like, if someone is a customer and someone is buying something, what they want, someone who has a result that they have, who has access to experience that they don't have, etc. So yeah, I think that's spot on. So just pick a medium, pick a way of communicating that you feel strong at, and pick a market that you feel you can help.
Exactly. And
let things
in general with evidence-based fitness, basically there's a sort of a top-down distillation of information, which starts with original researchers. And like Eric Helms and me are sort of part of that, but also not super well. Like, it's mostly full-time professors that do just nonstop research at a university. And those do, they talk with the subjects, they do the actual research, the laboratory measurements, etc. Those produce original data, as it's called. And after that, there is a huge layer of information distillation, which comes from the original researchers writing a discussion section, reviewing their results, other scientific reviews, reviewing those results, then more like people like me, which is basically popular science. It's not actual science. Like, we're not, at least in that capacity, writing actual articles in scientific journals, but we're distilling that information to something that's more manageable, but still scientifically referenced. And if you would, jazz it up a little bit, or make it more formal rather, then you could publish it potentially in a scientific journal. And then below that is people that make, for example, infographics for social media and stuff that still, hone down on the take-home messages and don't have 8 conditions like if this, then that, if this, then that. but just like, this is probably what you need to spend your time on. They don't write, I might write a 10-page article on the 2% optimization of your biceps peak, but the conclusion for, one level down in the distillation of information is probably someone that just writes an infographic that says, you don't need to worry about any of this stuff, for their audience. So you need to find out basically where you are in that layer and where your audience is. And based on that, see what kind of information you should give. Because if you give my kind of information to complete novices, they'll rate it terribly. They'll be like, this is way too much information. They are not super clear take-home messages. It's not super easily written. There's quite some technical terms, mostly advanced topics that require some background knowledge. What do I do? What do I eat? Should I go to the gym on Monday or Tuesday? And how do I lift the barbell?
There's a mismatch of the information, the level of information you're providing, and who is the target audience. I suppose the other problem that you mentioned there with this kind of trickle down of primary data from the professors down into the science communicators like yourself and Eric Helms, and then down to kind of the average PT that takes the tidbits from that and publishes it, is we saw like maybe 2-3 years after Helms started published his books, and you see people plagiarizing the nutritional pyramid like 3-4 years later on articles, and it's like, you've not only beaten the dead horse by this point, like it's already been communicated out so far, but also like to make content on that, it's so far behind the curve that it's just going to get no exposure. It's not going to, it's already telling people, telling that audience what they already know. And I think the only person who I see has done this successfully, taken some piece of information that's well behind the curve, is someone like James Smith, who's taken that information, which is obvious to kind of our crowd, and transmitted it to the kind of women around 30 who are a bit overweight, outside of this kind of fitness bubble. And he's communicated it in a way that's got a lot of character and social media presence. And so only that combination seems to have really succeeded. But when you get Mr. Bog Standard PT trying to publish these kind of ideas, it's just a lost cause.
Yeah, exactly. There was this, for example, there was this one article by, I think it's the guy from Physique. I'm not really sure, but he wrote a very long article on the fact that most people don't lose weight because they underestimate their energy intake, which is like very duh. And I just literally summarized the 5-page article, but he made it super funny with a lot of cartoons in it, and just visual imagery, and the way he wrote it with definitely not sciencey, with like caps lock stuff in it, bolded parts. It really hit home for a lot of people, and that became a super, super popular article, because even if you get the same information, if you can repackage it so that you reach new people, it can actually be really successful. And in general, you can also do this with different languages, or targeting different people. Like you say, for example, if someone is really popular in a certain community, which is like all men, and you can take that information and you make it accessible, more accessible for a female community, also really good. So yeah, there's lots of ways to basically not do the exact same thing as someone else, but give it your own flair and be successful with it.
So one of the questions we were going to ask you later on, but I think probably fits in quite well now, is just what are the mistakes, or what is a key mistake you see people making? And I think linked to what we've just been speaking about, I think probably the biggest mistake we see happen like every time you scroll through Instagram is a personal trainer making fitness content that really is only going to appeal to other personal trainers or other people of a similar knowledge level to them. So Is there anything else that you see that people consistently do that's a mistake, that's glaringly obvious, that would be kind of a simple, if I think about this differently, or if I switch my strategy, I could maybe avoid that?
Yeah, I'd say that these are probably the big ones, like not knowing your own product and niche and making sure those are tailored, using the right medium to communicate information that's relevant for your niche, and I think one mistake I'd add is, like you said, in the end, it's a business. And while I 100% think if you start off thinking, how do I make the most money? You're not going to be successful. You should think, how am I going to provide value to people's lives? But that said, in the end, you always have to remember that you are running a business, and it's your livelihood. So you have to think, what are you going to do with the reach you give? And a lot of people right now on social media, they chase likes, and Instagram is probably the worst for this. Like you say, you can have 1 million Instagram followers and have I know some people that have like around 1 million Instagram followers, and they barely get by, or they still have to do another job because they're not funneling that audience into product sales. And for example, on my website,
concept. Like 1 million people.
Yeah, but it's not 1 million people that buy your product. And also like on Reddit and these kind of forums, which is places that people that generally don't really buy stuff. I'd say that Reddit is so big that there's different niches and stuff. But in general, I'd say that Redditors are not your best buyers. They're very critical, cynical, skeptical. These are not people that easily give money to something, and they like to research things themselves, etc. So basically, you need to find ways to reach people, bring them to your platform, and you need to bind them with standard approach, which is also what I do, simply because you need something like this. Is you reach people via Google, social media, however, word of mouth, and in the end, I want to bring them to my website. In general, I don't really care at all about an Instagram follower per se, because it doesn't do anything. I only care about Instagram followers to the extent that I can bring them to my website. And then basically, the general funnel is I have a newsletter, which is a very big free email course with a lot of value that I provide for people. Like it's my most popular contents, some new stuff. I just basically, it's also long. Like the standard approach is like 7 messages, spam them a couple times and then sell. My one is like very long. It's a couple months, I think even, and it's not like a daily email. And in the end, or in between, you mention your products, and in the end, you do a more hard sell. And you just say like, hey, if you like this kind of product, this kind of content, this is that content gone pro.
I suppose this matches with your type of audience. You said that the people who tend to buy from you have been following you for a year or more. Plus, they tend to be more kind of cerebral, kind of like, I don't imagine the majority of your PT clients as in the majority of your like physique coaching clients are beginners. Like they're probably intermediate, advanced kind of people, and so that's the kind of content they follow. So it's fortuitous for you that you have the personal trainer's audience and the client audience, and they're both kind of the same type of people. And I imagine so many of them will also be PTs, or at least interested in becoming one.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you do, or what's your offer for someone who can't afford your coaching, but still wants something? Like, do you have a passive product or an information product that you sell as like a downsell?
No, I don't. Probably should. But this is one of those things where I'm just not interested in it. Like I could make super simplified version of my PT course, for example. That would probably be really good because, like you said, I'm not addressing that market. But I also don't really care about addressing that market. Like I just won't find it satisfactory. And also generally notice this, like reading YouTube comments for especially like super popular videos. It's like, in general, I think YouTube has an okay atmosphere, a nice community, but some comments are like, God, like, I don't want to spend my time making videos. And also, yeah, it's just I was a ghostwriter, and way before I did some ghostwriting, and that's soul draining work. You have to write an article about something you don't agree with. That is one of the worst things. You have to find arguments for. I think they're pretty sure there's actually psychological tests that measure they do to inflict cognitive dissonance and stuff. So that's basically what you're doing. Your job is then an active test of inducing cognitive dissonance in yourself. So I quit that basically as soon as I could. You do learn some stuff, and the type of people that use ghostwriting in the industry is a lot more people than you would want. But yeah, you really have to make sure that what you're doing is also fun for you, or enjoyable, or fulfilling, because it's that's in the end the reason you're on this planet, to enjoy it. And money is only the means to that end. So if you're doing something that makes you a lot of money while draining your happiness in the process, I'd say that's a bit backwards as an approach.
So the funnel that you described there is basically give away a lot of value at no cost, and then offer a way to sort of extend that relationship, which sort of one of the sort of the core principles that we have always relied on, that we teach and recommend, is always give before you ask. So never. And I think that we see the inverse of that on social media all the time. This idea of, here I am, here is me with very few clothes on, by the way, here's a supplement that you might like. There's no real value exchange there. There's nothing to consume. Whereas you're saying someone is getting presumably thousands of words from you before you even mention the fact that there's something to buy.
Exactly. And in general, you could say that the more popular you are and the more mainstream your audience, the less there is a value exchange, and the more it's just like mass promotion. And when you get to Gen Pop level, the stuff you see on billboards, in general, like if you look around, what kind of stuff you see on billboards, that's the stuff that is so mainstream, so popular. Like if you just show it to a lot of people, there's a good chance that a lot of those people are actually interested in that.
Yeah.
And that works if you are a Fortune 500 company and you have a product that targets pretty much, at least 50% of the world population. For almost any starting PT, I would say you have to go the niche route. You have to really focus on personalized product, personalized experience, making people know who you are. Like I say, being likable and authoritative, and creating your own niche like that.
Because this links back to another question I was going to ask you, which was, how do you? We're asked a lot in the emergence of an evidence-based community where more science that is coming down from the primary level is more accessible to personal trainers, and there's less confusion over well, if I have all my carbs post-training in the evening, is that really the secret? And people have moved past that now. So if someone's a personal trainer who feels like they have access to this information, but their clients believe that actually, regardless of what you think, I've decided that carbs are bad for me, or I've decided that a plant-based diet will fix everything. How do you market yourself in a world where you are promoting the non-sexy alternative in a world of sort of quick fix pills? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, in the end, results sell. So if you are selling something that doesn't provide results, basically, if you're wrong, then you're going to have a hard time marketing that, whatever you do.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I'd say. If you're, for vegans, for example, and this is both vegans and carnivores, carnivore diet and vegan diet. You have basically the zealots that say vegan diet is best for everything, or the carnivore diet is best for everything. Those are pretty much doomed never to be super successful, because they're simply wrong. So that's something that may be popular. It may become a fad, and they may actually make a lot of money if they do it, intelligently. But it's not going to be successful for the next 3 decades.
As a sidetrack, I watched the Game Changers documentary. I was fully prepared to do an experiment on myself where I was going to do sort of like 2-3 months of plant-based diet. I was going to buy all the supplements, do a blood test before and after. I was saying to you stuff like, I'm going to do I'm going to document this, write articles as I go. I then read your article on it that basically said there's not really a benefit to it. And I was like, right, fine. I'm going to do it then.
Yeah.
But you probably get the opposite as well, where because you've challenged a lot of the main assumptions in fitness. Like you've been saying, you don't need as much protein as the magazines would say that you need, and the vegan diet thing, cholesterol. I'm sure there's loads of others as well. And you said that so these zealots will often dig their heels in harder when you present the alternative view, to the point where they won't review the evidence with the same critical eye, because they're like, no, this is what I do, and I've decided that this is right. So I wonder whether you, without really trying to, because you're just kind of an evidence-based guy, you don't really sensationalize your content. but it's still polarizing because some people just don't like what the data says. And, we were saying that at the start, that people are even personally offended by certain bits of data, even around like gender differences in training response or things like that.
Right. So that's something, that's a luxury problem, basically. It's something you have to learn to live with as you get more popular, even in your niche. You're going to offend people. And a lot of people are not going to like you. Some people are probably going to hate you. So that's pretty much inevitable. It's just a numbers game. Like if you have a lot of people, and some people are super likable persons, but some people just actively dislike likable persons because they're like mainstream and gen pop, and there's like their standard and whatnot. So it's pretty much impossible for any person, if you show them to 1,000 people, for all of those 1,000 people to like what you do. Like they won't agree. Not 1,000 people are going to agree with you, and not 1,000 people are going to like you. So you're basically going to have enemies, if you will, and that's fine. That's just something that comes with the territory. And I think you just have to find for yourself a way to address it. That probably depends on the kind of responses you get. Like I'd say I have very few haters, pretty much only Lyle McDonald and some of his hardcore followers.
But who doesn't have Lyle McDonald as a hater?
Well, there were about 3 people up until the 45 set study by Schoenfeld, and now it's I think it's 0.
We've got in trouble with Lyle before.
Quite bad. We got added. We had him ask his entire group to spam all of our stuff and comment negatively on everything, and got quite nasty. But this is something that I think, like, if you move from, you're like a local personal trainer, or maybe you've got no presence at all, and you start putting out, sort of taking steps to put yourself out there, and someone says something really damning about something you've done, it's weird, isn't it? The first few times, like, it makes you want to retreat and stop, and you scale it up, and someone sends you a nasty message, or like a private message that's threatening or aggressive. It's just as you say, it's part of the game.
Yeah, and that's one of the big things that I had a problem with Lyle with, like, way before shit got way worse. But that was like, if he sends a message like that, this, not to make this about Lyle, too many of these conversations end up talking about Lyle, but in general, if you send like a really hateful message like that to a new PT that just doesn't know any better, it can be very, very destructive. Like that, for us now, social media are mainly a business thing. I barely use my social media really for any personal purposes at this point. For one, it's just impossible to get through. Even if you're a friend of mine and you use the wrong email address to contact me, it's like you get a reply later, or it ends up with my administration or some stuff. So, but main point is that when you start off, and this is all still very personal for you, and it's like a scary idea to put up a picture as your profile picture that you think is like a bit much, or is like very, very business, or it shows your biceps, and your family doesn't like bodybuilders. Mm-hmm. So, and then you get a comment like, what the fuck is this, you fucking retard? Then that can really hurt someone.
Yep.
So
and it's something that I don't think very many people in the world where, like, online coaching is aggressively promoted as being the answer to everything. It's something that people don't ever talk about. With reach, with followers, with traffic comes a percentage of those people. I think it was Tim Ferriss who spoke about, like, there is a percentage of the world that are psychopaths, and as your audience gets bigger, you are going to encounter those people on the internet. And when there's no face-to-face interaction with someone who's happy to say anything to you, like, no matter, with no regard for your feelings at all, it's far easier to send that as a private message on Instagram than it is to say that face-to-face, or to threaten somebody. When there's not really any consequences.
It's so interesting sometimes when you, like, we've just very occasionally, like, we haven't got a huge audience, so occasionally we'll see people who have been giving us all this online, and then you see them in person, maybe at an event or something, and they're so meek, and you're like, wow, like, all this giving it the big and online is actually like someone who's quite scared in real life.
I've never had it. I've never encountered it any other way.
Yeah,
in fact.
It's always that direction, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'd even say that you always say like direct messages. That's already like the more psychopathic people, because for most people, if they don't really realize it, there are a lot of people just leave very unconstructive negative comments. Actually, I had like a list at some point. I want to write an article about it. Some big ones are like, this was known since, and then date. That comment basically means I knew this already. It has nothing to do with the article or the information. I mean, if you write an article about something and it's just good information, it's maybe you don't like it, maybe you don't share it, and you're like, oh, this is amazing, like man on the moon. But just writing like this was already known is like all of these things, especially if you look in that hierarchy of scientific evidence. The original data is usually like at least several years old before it's really anywhere near mainstream, even in mainstream for evidence-based fitness. And there's like many other comments. If you just go for like a big thread, and YouTube has this a lot, people don't really think about it. Or they just like people that are, this is like mild even, like I don't buy it. Like, I don't believe it. Like, okay, you get a lot of comments like that. What was your original question?
I can't remember.
But yeah, that's like when someone's like, "Oh, I knew this," or "I don't buy it." It's like, okay, cool. Like,
yeah,
good for you.
And also to say like, I knew this already. Like that person just has a worldview that their understanding of the world, everybody understands everything that they understand, and only things that they find.
I remember. I was going through a point. A lot of people, they just leave these comments very reactively, and if you message them privately, especially if you start recognizing a name for leaving like just very unconstructive comments or criticisms, just DM them, like send them a private message like, hey, I noticed you're leaving a lot of comments like this, maybe we're not on the same page. Or you could just, if they're just outright hateful, just ask like, why don't you like me? Or what's the have I wronged you in some way? But keep it civil. Don't go, you don't want to make a fight. You have to keep it really civil and basically open yourself up to the criticism, but privately. And that usually helps immensely, because for what a lot of people is just an online thing, is now suddenly a one-on-one interaction with another human being. Rather
and they're
than
like, oh, actually, this guy's a human software on the other end.
Exactly.
So usually for us, if it's something public, we will respond publicly and then just unsubscribe the person or block them. But certainly once it gets to a point where there's so much traffic that we can't do that, I would just block and like minimize the time spent.
Some people you should just block. I think I've only blocked in total on all my social media. I'm not even sure if you can block someone on Instagram, but on Facebook, I've blocked, I think, like 10 people in total. So that's really low compared to what I know from a lot of other people.
We've had it with emails. There's been examples where someone will respond to an email that goes to our list. Someone will reply with something aggressive, and then stop emailing me, you prick, or something like that. To something you've subscribed to, GDPR compliant and everything, and then you reply to the person and apologize and say, no problem, I'll unsubscribe you, and they reply back and say, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I didn't think anyone read these emails. You're like, well, what are you replying for then?
Well, like, people will resubscribe after you've unsubscribed them. You're like, well, stop subscribing and you won't receive any more emails. Then problem solved.
I think that the way and I imagine you're the same, man, like you start to gradually see this as just data points.
Just
like
noise.
As you do something and it's, okay, well, I've created a small ripple here with this. There's going to be a percentage of people, as you say, who don't like it. No matter how likable you are, you're going to offend somebody. Even if it's actually, this was a great piece of work and someone's upset about the fact that it's a great piece of work that's very balanced and very scientifically grounded. So it's just, as I think to us, actually having no criticism is probably worse, because you're almost achieving nothing at that point. Like you're creating such little noise online that no one even cares enough to criticize you. So
yeah, that's a valid point to a large extent.
And haters or people who criticize are always more vocal. Like I'm certainly more vocal of things I don't agree with, and things I'm like, that was fantastic.
It's just like,
yeah, exactly.
A lot of people don't even like, they're like,
yeah.
I stay subscribed. That's what they do.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But you don't see that. You just see the one person who leaves the scathing comment. So, yeah. So just to quickly transition before we wrap up, just onto something a bit more positive. I guess you mentioned at the start of the podcast, you're in New York. Is that right?
Yeah, Philadelphia now.
Okay. So it sounds like you travel quite a bit, because I think the last time we spoke to you, you were somewhere else, and you mentioned that you do sort of live this digital nomad lifestyle a little bit, which I think is probably the freedom of location and where you work, when you work, all that sort of stuff is something that a lot of people who move online aspire to. Mm-hmm. What is that a huge benefit for you? Is that one of the selling points of being an online coach?
It probably is. I don't really emphasize that much. Because I don't know, I think it's very easy to give the wrong impression. If I look at a lot of digital nomads, like lying at the beach the whole day, and I mean, fact of the matter is that I work more hours than most people do in an office job, because I work for 7 days instead of 5 days.
Right.
And I work pretty much the same hours, probably, just I don't have to commute. But it's a huge advantage, I would say, like, especially if it's possible, if you're single, if you're with someone who also travels, or with friends or other digital nomads. It's definitely amazing. I mean, I think for some people it's not in the cards. They're like, I want my routines, my consistency. I want to be at home with my dog watching TV and know exactly what's in the fridge and not have to go outside and whatnot. But if you're like more adventurous and you want to see the world, online, any kind of job, and online PT in general is an amazing way to do this.
So how do you structure your time? If you're working 7 days a week, is that just you find it easier to keep the same rhythm each day, or how do you go about thinking?
Yeah, I actually have a very structured method. I think we can get into it completely, because in 3 minutes I have another call.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Basically, my daily setup is: morning is creative work, mostly writing articles, working on my PT course, and then in the afternoon I will transition to afternoon to client work. I use the workout strategically as a break always. Some more client work, then fun, something fun, or dinner, or something that really takes you out of it. If I have more creativity at that point, when I'm sort of full recharge, I have like 1 or 2 more hours of either creative work or more client work, or if I'm like not really feeling it, something more administrative, like you. Then at the end of the day, always still unwind for at least an hour. Like, I watch a series with my fiance usually, and then go to bed. Make sure you get ample sleep and repeat the cycle.
Sounds solid. Awesome.
Okay. So, I mean, the difference for me is mainly that if you're a digital nomad, whereas most people, want to do something fun, you go to a Starbucks. And if you're a digital nomad, your something fun can be visiting Mayan ruins, because they're almost next door. So
yeah, there's never
definitely is amazing.
Something fun. Awesome. Well, Menno, thanks so much for coming back on. It's been awesome to chat to you again.
My pleasure.
If people want to find out more about you, find out more about your work, the PT course, where's the best place to go?
mennohenselmans.com. You probably provide a link in the show notes, because nobody can spell it. And probably the best way is to sign up for a free email course. If you don't know me yet, I have Facebook, Instagram, and you'll see everything on my website.
So I should mention as well, Menno, one of my clients recently, he won't mind me giving him a shout out here. It's called Nims, signed up for your PT course, and he has extolled the benefits of it. He said it's absolutely fantastic. He sent me some of the like overview contents page and said some of the stuff was in it, and it looks amazing. And I think actually in this space where PT qualifications there's so much shit in that world. And I think for anyone listening that is a PT and wants to actually improve their education and their knowledge within becoming a better coach, you really can't get better than Menno's course. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, I think it's certainly the real deal.
Right, awesome. I gotta run. I'll be able to talk to you guys again. Let me know when we post this, and I'll share it.
Wonderful. All right. Speak soon.
Right. See you guys.
See ya.